that when you cast this as a metaphysical conflict between good and evil, you don't notice what the political players are doing. And yet I think it's very important, because I think these people are trying to capture the Arab street. I think that's what they're up to.
One common denominator I've got out of those tapes is the word occupation. So whether it's occupation of Saudi Arabia by the U.S. troops, the existence of the military of the U.S. troops in Jeddah or somewhere in Riyadh, the occupation of Palestine, or maybe Iraq, it's the word occupation.
Yeah, and we know there's actually a scholar at the University of Chicago who has the biggest database on suicide terrorism, and he has actually gone before Congress, he's testified before Congress, and this is the one thing that he has been able to link to suicide terrorism, that is foreign occupation.
I do have, I believe, Gene on line one.
Hello.
How are you?
I've been watching, listening to your program. What wanted me to, urge me to speak was that you said the Palestinians only threw rocks over there at Israel, when even now they're shooting rockets, and every time Israel wants peace, Arafat would start something, sending people out there to blow up the people, their own people,
he's gone.
Killing their own people. Not once have they honored the Oslo Agreement. The Arabs were sent there by Lebanon and Jordan because they didn't want them. So there was no Palestinians before, and the Arabs there are nothing but trouble.
Do you have a question for us?
Yeah.
Tell me the question.
Are you going to tell the truth?
I will. I fear no one except God. Ask me the question.
No, that's my question. What? Are you going to tell us the truth, not just one side, your side?
Let me tell you this. There is no way you can compare a tiger or a lion fighting a cat or a rat. You know, if you want to compare F-16s and Apache helicopters and over 1 million individuals as trained military people, if you want to compare those to homemade grenades or bombs or weapons that was homemade, there's no comparison. That's what I'm talking about. There's no comparison. That's
sir,
that's one thing.
I'm going to have to interrupt you both. In fact, I did say there was light weapons there.
Right.
I did say that. Those did come in with Oslo. So I am telling you the truth. But the fact of the matter is the Palestinians are under occupation. They do not have a military.
Right.
That does not mean that they haven't used, including suicide bombings. That doesn't mean...
Israel has always been Israel. Palestine has never been Palestine.
Well, I think that there's nothing in the scholarly record that supports what you're saying.
They are not being occupied. As tiny as little Israel is, with all the Arab Muslims against them, and they've already swore to send the Israelites into the sea, how can you say they want peace? Thank you very much.
I respect your opinion. Thank you so much. The issue of borders. I mean, do you see really two states, Arab, Israeli, Palestinian, Israeli states?
This is the thing, is had we gone into Oslo, and this was, I want to be clear that I'm not saying that the Palestinian leadership never made any mistakes, because in fact they have made some really crucial mistakes.
So Yasser Arafat did make mistakes.
Absolutely,
in 91.
absolutely. Yasser Arafat, although he was under a lot of pressure, I think the biggest mistake he made, although he did retract it, and that's something we don't hear about here, is coming out and supporting Saddam Hussein during the first Gulf War.
I agree
that
with you.
Was a major mistake.
In fact,
no one asked the PLO what their position on this was, and that dried up a lot of funds in the Gulf to the PLO. And then when the Soviet Union fell, then he was under a lot of pressure to sign. Now, to be fair to him, since 1970, around 1970, he has been trying to get to the negotiating table. I know that's not the propaganda that's heard in the United States, but in fact, it was Arafat, who forced Palestinian negotiators who were inside the West Bank and used to dealing with the Israelis, who had lived under the occupation and were familiar with them, and who were negotiating for the, we're going to Washington as part of the Madrid peace conference, that Haider Abdel Shafi, Hanan Ashrawi, Saeb Erekat, these people who would never have signed on to Oslo, never in a million years would they have signed anything that didn't insist on a ceasing of settlement building. But it was Yasser Arafat who came in and trumped that.
I want to be optimistic about those borders, but how can Palestinians truly live in a little tiny island while they're surrounded? Israel, the sea from this side, and Egypt. I mean, to me,
and the other Arabs.
Exactly. To me, it's like a big present. I mean, even if you want to go to Palestine from anywhere, it's just like you have to kiss people's feet just to get in, or to go out even.
Well, the problem with the two-state solution is, where are you going to put the two states? This is the major issue.
Well, I thought it's the West Bank and Gaza, and maybe the Jerusalem is going to be an international religious site.
That 22% of historic Palestine, we are so far away from anything like that, and that's not in the cards with the current Israeli administration or the current U.S. administration. Yeah. So even the deal breaker, which would give the Palestinians back that 22%, and work out something with the refugees, and that's another big problem, and that's come back in spades, I think.
Actually, I was going to talk about this. What about the right of return?
That's an extremely difficult issue and complicated issue, and part of why, for both peoples, this conflict is so complicated is that we're dealing with two diasporic peoples. We have the Palestinians inside the West Bank, Gaza, and East Jerusalem. We have the Palestinians inside Israel, and we have the Palestinian diaspora. And each constituency within that, their priority is different. Palestinians in Israel want equal rights as citizens in the state. Palestinians in the Palestinian territories want independent statehood, and the diaspora want to return to Palestine. So those are three different priorities. And also, likewise for Israel, it's sort of like in both cases, who are the constituency? Because Israel is a state not for the people who live in Israel, but for Jews wherever they are in the world who would like to come and settle there. So,
since you visited the Holy Land and you have witnessed and you have feelings, because Palestine or the Palestinians are the only occupied people on earth today. Do you have anybody else? Do you know of any other country or state or land that is occupied today?
Some people claim Kashmir, some people claim Cyprus. Yeah. But there are a lot of these kinds of situations